Okay, so this is day 2 of Mishlei 1430, and I want to review what we did yesterday and also develop it just a little bit, or try to develop it a little bit. Okay, we have, oops, one second. Chaye bisarim leiv marpe urakav atzamos kina. Okay, so we translated it as a healing heart or healing mind is the life of flesh. Okay, and then for some reason flesh is plural, but jealousy is rot of the bones. Okay, but then we had a bunch of very different translations. Metzudas David says a soft heart is healing of the flesh, but anger is rotting of the bones. Because that's one I want to focus on and go through again. Sadigon says a healthy heart is the life of the body. What did he use? Refu, yeah, halev habari chay haguf, v'hakina rekev la'atzamos. I also want to explore that. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
Maybe because of the second half.
yeah.
The second half is plural.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then if it were to be singular, it would seem like it's talking about specific basar.
Right. Okay, that's a plausible interpretation. Yeah, especially because I saw someone say, if you look at the Sefer Chukah, who is Yosef Kimchi, who was a grammarian, he says, Lo nimsa b'kas of chibur milashon lechem v'yain ubasar. I don't know exactly what it means by chibur, but you'll see it from context. He says, Lo lachamim v'lo yenos v'lo basarim. So he's saying in Tanakh, you don't find lechem, yain, or basar being pluralized. Okay. But in the words of Chazal, you do find breads and wines. Velo basarim, but you also don't find basarim. I think that's what you're saying, right? That I don't know, chaver or chiver, but it's saying basarim regarding the pairing of bones with them. Amar chaye ha'atzamos v'ha'basarim the life of the bones and the flesh that is on the bones. Okay, so that was a good intuition. Okay. Yeah. All right. So then and refers as the life of flesh trains the heart, which we didn't know exactly how he gets that. But envy rots the bones. And then the rhyming Isaac is a healthy body from the healthy mind, but envy makes the bones rot in kind. We really got to publish a whole edition of Mishlei with this. Okay. All right. So we did the Metzudas ציון yesterday. We had our own ideas. Okay. Our own ideas were basically two general approaches. One was an approach that the subject of the pasuk is the effect of your mental state on your physical health. So if you have a leiv marpe, which we're translating here as an unagitated mind, we're using leiv marpe here from soft. Then that will promote actual physical health. So a soft mind, it gives life to the flesh, gives physical health. Whereas if your mind is plagued by kina, then that could cause actual disease. Okay, why kina? Because and this works for kina and for kas, depending on how you translate, or like no matter how you translate it, because kina is predicated on a relative value system where you're constantly comparing yourself to everyone else, and you're going to condemn yourself to a permanent state of discontent because someone will either someone will always have more money, have more, not just money, have more than you, or you'll have to worry about that happening. So just to clarify here, if you're involved in like practical life and you are like caring about your actual needs, so there is a finite amount. So you are hungry, you eat a certain amount, and then you are full, or you have, you're using money for like practical needs. So you get the money and then you spend it on what you need. But if you're in kina, and then that unhinges you from any finite amount, and you'll always be in a state of tension. It's like you're inoculating yourself against sameach b'chalko, like it's just, you're making it impossible for you to be sameach b'chalko because you're constantly going to be comparing yourself to other people. And like we mentioned yesterday, even if there's no one around you who's like that, you'll imagine if someone else is like that, or if you are objectively at the top, you'll be worried about like retaining your spot. So it's like, and I think it's the constant tension that wears you down,
Yeah. I like the fact that you use the word unhinges you from it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So that was Ezra's approach. And then David added that alternatively, the health or unhealth of your mental state can also cause you to make poor decisions, which are detrimental to your physical health. So I wanted to just go back to Chai Besarim Lev Marpeh or Rukav Atamos Kina. Hold on a second here. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess this, it really depends on whether you go with Art Scroll where you add the word brings. Is this causative or is it constitutive? Well, I guess we're okay, never mind. We're saying it's constitutive or it's causative no matter what. Right. It's just two levels here, right? In other words, by putting yourself in this state of discontent, you're gonna make bad decisions, and then that'll be worse for you physically. Okay, and then Isaac's thing was that was what the distortion of reality point. Yeah. So I guess what I want to just think about a little bit more is actually let's actually read the Metzudas David again, because I kind of don't remember that. Metzudas David said, someone who has a soft mind, ve'eno makshe libo lintor kina, who does not bear a grudge of anger, hu lo l'chai b'sarim. That's going to be life for his flesh. Ki lo yidag ich uvameh yinkom nakem. He won't have this anxiety about how and when he's going to take vengeance. But someone who hardens his heart and bears a grudge and anger, who siba lahavi rikavon ba'atmosav lahasmadas adaga. That's going to bring rot to the bones with the perpetual anxiety. So this is not, you might not be bothered by this question, and I'm not bothered by it, but I feel like we just got to push it a little bit more. Why focus specifically on the physical health and express it in such like physical terms of like fleshes and bones? In other words, why not say you're going to be in a perpetual state of discontent or you're going to get sick? Like, perpetual state of discontent is the cause. Then getting sick is like, that's not referring to body parts. I guess, like, why is it talking about body parts? Yeah.
I think flesh and bones are like your very substance, basically.
Mm-hmm. Right. Basar v'dam. Well, okay. Basar v'dam, yeah.
Yeah, but like whatever, like in halacha when they're talking about, about body parts, it's basar gidim v'etzamos.
Right.
And like, I think sinew would have like a different connotation.
Yeah, right.
Like moving or something.
Yeah.
But the like substance is really the basar.
Okay.
And etzamos.
So I like that theory. So now the question is, what does that add or accomplish, or in terms of framing the idea that way? Yeah.
So it's saying it's not just like, it's not like, oh, you're gonna I always have this feeling that like the person's spleen is like completely like unnecessary, but let's say like your appendix. That actually
okay.
But if it's like, oh yeah, it's gonna make your like appendix go bad.
Yeah.
Then it's like there's something that it's not good.
Yeah.
But it's not like a big, not like there's like a specific thing,
right. Right.
But if it's like your whole body,
right? I mean, the raya, that's how not just from like what Chazal say, but I mean literally the word for self is atzmo, right? Like it's the word etzem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be similar, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like normally when we think of like buster, like on a cow, like we think about like the juiciness and like the like the outside of the flesh, like
right?
Fatty and good,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm hungry right now. But the bone, and I think that's like like external, like how we view it. So like maybe our like relationship to the buster is more like more visible.
Yeah.
But with the bones, like, well, why did the bones seems to be more important than the buster, but that's the stability and security of sorry,
okay.
Take us for like the past 24 hours. But if the bones aren't like structured, then like it could ruin the whole image of the buster too.
Yeah, so there's a good point you're making about the meat, because I think it's funny because in the olden days, then physical health was synonymous with like fleshiness, right? Like fat and healthy were like synonymous, whereas for us it's not really like that. But with animals, then we do still think of it as like the fatter cow is like the better one, right? Yeah. Okay. So I had a different approach. So Isaac is taking the approach and also secondarily Ariel, that like this cuts to the very like essence of your physical essence, basically. Like this affects your physical essence. So that's showing, you're saying it's showing like how fundamental or important the thing is. Like it.
Well, I'd say that's one possibility.
Yeah.
Another possibility is it'll just like overwhelm everything else in terms of not that it's like the most important thing, but you have something that's like it's like basically it could be like so obsessive that it takes over.
Okay, I hear. Yeah. So I think my approach is different. So my approach is that I think that so it's a funny paradox, is that on the one hand, we relate to emotions as being very real because we identify the self as a psyche, like that's how we interact. Like that's why people feel like when their feelings are hurt, then you're hurting me. Really, it's just your feelings that are hurt, but people identify with their feelings. So that's on the one hand, we view emotions as real. On the other hand, I think we don't realize the effect that our emotions can have on our physical state of being. So by emphasis, so if it just said something like, and I think there are other pasukim like this, that emotions, hold on a second. I think we had this in a Monday night shiur. Yeah, I know we had this in Monday night shiur recently. Tocheles.
Emotions are bad.
No, that was a porn video. Johnny was telling me that he was rewatching that recently, and it's he said, I don't know how Ariel delivered that whole scene so well. Yeah.
There's a lot of concentration.
Yeah.
And a lot of practice.
Yeah. Mishlei 13. Oh, it was in our wait. No, it was Monday. Yeah. Tocheles mimushacha machalas lev. Protracted hope or extended hope is a disease of the heart. Okay, so disease is a physical thing, but it's also like a little bit removed or abstract. But saying that this rots your bones or like fleshes you out is like showing how it's showing a stronger. It's the most it's making real the mind-body connection, in other words, like if I told you envy is a flesh-eating amoeba, or a flesh-eating disease, and like that's like that evokes like a visceral reaction that if I have envy, I'm gonna waste away. Like that is like trying to like show, it's not just an abstract thing that this can make you sick. It's that this is going to like put your body on a downhill treadmill is not a thing, on a perpetual like downhill course, so I think that's slightly different than what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying like it's emphasizing in the cause and effect thing. We are prone to believe that mental life can't affect physical wellness, and this is like trying to like deliver that message in a very strong and forceful way. Yeah. So again, these are all like nuances to the idea.
Yeah. I have an explanation, like an elaboration of Metzudas David based on my idea.
Sure.
So if a person has bears a grudge against someone, like let's say my coworker did something to me, and something that was definitely let's say he definitely wronged me, and if I let's say get over it and maybe I trust him less or whatever, but I move on, then my interaction with him can be pretty much normal. But if I am bearing a grudge and waiting to get revenge, then every single time I'm interacting with him, I'm going to be covered by this cloud of vengeance.
I think that is actually true to the Metzudas David, because the Metzudas David does emphasize the revenge and the noter kina, right? We were just talking about the value system of the revenge generates emotions that eat, that weigh upon you. But this is talking about an actionable, kina with natira is like an actionable thing. And so you're every, like you said, every interaction is going to be tainted with or driven by this like need to like, how am I going to take revenge? Evening the score, like what is the score? It's yeah.
Do we ever explain like how does jealousy do that? Like, I mean, you specifically asked that question.
So a funny thing, I actually encountered that in this week's parashah. The Rambam's hold on just a second here.
How does jealousy do what?
Well, it's on
Oops.
on the doc.
What do you
mean? It's on the doc. Your question's on the doc. Right there.
But with the ציון or
no, on mine.
How? Yeah. Okay, so okay, I'm just gonna try to find this really quickly. Why have I in Mishnayos? I want the Rambam. So in this week's parsha in Kedoshim is lo tekalo cheresh, right? So what is that mitzvah?
Don't curse the deaf mute.
No, that's not the mitzvah.
Yeah.
No. What is the mitzvah?
Cheresh is a meat, right?
Is definitely, yeah. So the mitzvah is don't curse any Jew. Okay, right? So so kol hamakalo dayan. This is in Hilchos Sänhedrin Halachi Masur Lahem Chavav Aleph. Kol hamakalo dayan midayani Yisrael over below tazeh. Anyone who curses a judge of Israel violate the lo tazeh. Shnemar Elokim lo takalal, as it says in Mishpatim. Don't curse a judge. Elohim lo takalal. Yeah. I think they darshan it though. Oh yeah, fine. But here definitely it's Elohim. So too, if you curse a leader of Sanhedrin, meaning a leader, whether the leader of a Sanhedrin or a king, over below okay, v'lo dayan v'nasi bilvad, not just a dayan or a nasi, ela kol makala echad miYisrael loka. Anyone who curses any Jew gets malchus. Shnemar lo tekal cheresh. Don't curse a deaf mute. V'lama nemar cheresh. Why does it say a deaf mute? She'afilu ze she'eno shomea nitzta'er b'klal hazo, v'lo nitztar b'klal hazo. Even someone who can't hear and therefore will not be aggrieved or pained by this curse, loka al kilulaso, you still get malchus on the klalav. Yireli shamakala as a katan loka harhu kecheresh. And if you curse a kid, then you also get malchus because that's like a cheresh. So the point of the pasuk expressing it this way is, don't think that this is only usher because of the bein adam lachavero harm. This is usher even though the other person can't hear it at all. Okay, so the question is, what is the harm? Okay, so what I want to read is the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvos. And if you have not read the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvos on Lo Tekal Cheresh, then you're in for a treat. Okay. I forgot if I've shared this hack. Hopefully this hack works. That the Yad Pshuta in the Koseres brings down the Sefer HaMitzvos for every one of the mitzvos here. Okay, so and I'm using this because I think it's a better translation. Okay, so he says like this: Shum Adam Yisrael. Who amro lo tekal cheresh. This is mitzvah shin yud zayin. Mahu. Okay, so listen to me what the word cheresh is. Okay, who kasher nefesh. This is a beautiful description of psychology. Who kasher nefesh misoreres lihinakim min hamazik. When the soul is aroused to get revenge against someone who harms it, kifi tsuras hanezik hanirshemes b'dimayon, in proportion to the image of the harm that is impressed upon the imagination. Okay, I'll explain in a second. Lo techtel mehis orarusa ad asher tanish es hamazik kafit suras hanezik shenikba b'dimayon. Then the soul will not, the arousedness of the soul will not abate, will not stop until it punishes the damager in proportion to the form of the harm that is established in the imagination. The kasher tanishenu, and once you punish him that way, tashech osa hahis orus, then that arousedness, that state of arousal, will cease. The te'edar osa hatsura min hademayon, and that image will vanish from the imagination. Okay, beautiful description of how revenge works. So how does it work? So let's say Isaac insults me. Okay, so the insult will generate, so I'll get harmed, and then that's going to generate in my imagination a certain, another like this. There's like the Stoics say, right? There's the, it's not the it's not the action or the speech itself that harms you. It's the impression or the imagination you have, the judgment you form of it. So Isaac says a statement, my imagination generates a harm, and that imagined harm arouses my soul to take revenge, but there's a shiur to that revenge. And I feel compelled, I'm in this state of arousal to try to take revenge until I am mashlim that shiur, until I reach that shiur. And once I mashlim that shiur, so then the arousal will stop, and then the desire for revenge will stop. Okay?
Yeah,
that's a really good.
It's a great description, right? And I, I used to always make this mistake. I knew that this Rambam existed, and I would always look for it in the Isser of Lo Sikom over Lo Sitor, and it's not there. It's in Lo Takala. So the question is, what does this have to do with cursing? Okay, were you gonna ask something?
Yeah, it's interesting because like he's very consistent with like even like lashon hara.
Yeah,
like lashon hara. Like
he's gonna talk about that.
Yeah, the list it's an issue to the listener also.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
I'll just to give an example.
Sure.
When Doug and I were kids, this is like exactly how we would get into fights.
Yeah.
It's like one of us would do something small to the person.
Yeah.
And then maybe really unintentionally.
Yeah.
And then that's like he did something to me. And then I'd get upset about it, and I'd do something back that I felt was proportionate.
Right.
But then
in his mind,
that was like way bigger, and then he did something.
Yeah, right.
Was,
Yeah, that's actually a good example of it, because it shows that it's not the objective reality that is dictating the shiur. It is the imagined harm. And this, by the way, is the difference between vengeance and justice, where in the world of justice, there is a fixed objective shiur. Someone, harms you, and you have a whole system of halacha that like measures the shiur of the harm with the different types of payment, Yeah.
Okay. And it would be specifically when I would do the thing back to him.
Yeah.
I'd feel good and settled, and I'd be like,
right,
okay, we're done.
Right. That's the good description. Right. Yeah. Actually, I have to quote the I think I've quoted this in Mishlei before. Internet classic archives.
Everyone wants that last blow.
So if you ever want to read Aristotle's definitions of all the emotions, in the book Rhetoric, okay, and remember, Rhetoric is the art of persuasion. Book 2, he goes through every emotion, because in order to be a persuasive speaker, you have to know how to manipulate people's emotions. So he talks about every emotion, what causes it, and how to manipulate it. Okay,
I gotta read that.
So he defines anger. I know I've read this before. Anger may be defined as an impulse accompanied by pain to a conspicuous revenge for a conspicuous slight directed without justification towards what concerns oneself or towards what concerns one's friends. Okay, which means that first of all, the thing I want to get out of this is anger is always accompanied by an arousal for revenge. Okay, you want to pay the person back. Okay, and you want to do it conspicuously. I mean, it has to be felt, okay, or perceived, and it is in result of a slight that is directed without justification. In other words, if someone does something to you and you feel it's justified, like if it's fully justified, you're not going to get angry. But to the extent that you feel it's not justified, then you're going to be aroused to anger, and it could be directed at you or towards your friends. Okay.
Very interesting. Like, it's interesting. Would that mean that like, if someone is like innocent, then like he'd feel angry if someone did harm him? Or, like,
yes. Yeah. Definitely.
If he's guilty, but like he wouldn't really feel.
Right. The only problem is that even people who know that they're guilty, in part, feel that they're innocent, and so the anger can come from that. Yeah. Okay. So now, what does this have to do with cursing? So the Rambam says like this: Yish shitani shehu b'klala v'chiruf bilvad v'tashech. So some people will punish the offender with a curse or an insult alone, and then their wrath will abate. Okay, then the wrath will stop. Biyada'a es erech hanezek shiagia lamazik be'osam hadavarim uboshto behem. Knowing, because they know the value of the harm, or the measure of the harm, that the degree of the harm that will reach the offender through his words and through the guy's embarrassment from them. Some people need a greater punishment, or will be aroused to a greater punishment. Okay, so sometimes you'll get angry and your state of arousal for revenge will not cease until you destroy all the guy's property or his money. Va'az tashech, and then it'll whatever. Then it'll abate. Biyada es erech hatzar shehigia lo ba'avdon rechusha, because you know the amount of suffering that this guy's going to suffer that this guy's going to feel when he loses all of his property. V'yesh sheyeh hadavar chamor yoser v'lo tashech ad shetanishehu begufo b'minei makos. Sometimes your arousal for revenge won't abate until you punish the guy bodily through hitting him or subtracting his limbs. Okay. Yeah. One more step though. Sometimes the arousal for revenge will not abate until you take the soul of the damager and annihilate him from his existence. That's the ultimate level, right? So this is like why we have to have Ari Miklat, right? Because of Goel Hadam is going to take revenge by killing the other person. Okay, all right. Then he drops down to a lower level. Sometimes the arousal of the soul for revenge will be too minimal to actually seek to punish the guy due to the lightness of the hate. To the point where this arousal will abate through shouting, through raging, and through cursing. To the point where even if the guy doesn't hear the matter, if you were present there, then it'll abate. Okay, so in other words, the first case was you curse the guy out to his face, and your words have an effect on him, and then that causes your arousal to abate. But then there are other cases where like you just curse the guy under your breath, or you curse the guy to your friend, and the guy doesn't hear it, and that I'm venting, and you get that out of your system. Yeah,
it's like someone cuts you off in traffic.
Exactly, and you just like that's a great example.
But but you can't hear you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect modern example. That is the Isser. Okay. This is well known. Don't worry, it's only for Jews. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I guess
no, you should worry because it's still an imperfection. But
if you still cuts you off in Broadway, I mean,
right, a robe. Yeah. So he says this is well known, well known in the repertoire of the actions of people who are wrathful and angry. That their soul, their anger in their soul will abate with a minimal amount through light sins that are very light. Even though the sinner has no knowledge of their anger and their curse. Okay? You might have a havamina. You might think that the whole reason why the Torah prohibits us to curse another Jew is davka im hayashomea osamach mas mashiagilo mikach mina boshav hatzar. You might think that the Torah only prohibits us to curse other Jews because of the pain and the embarrassment that they're going to suffer when you curse them. Aval kilas hacheresh, but cursing a deaf person came sheino shomea ve'eno mitztar bekach. But a deaf person who doesn't hear it and is not pained at all, you might think that there's no sin. Therefore, the Torah tells us it's usher. And it warns us against this. The Torah prohibits us with this because the Torah is not only concerned with the situation of the guy who is insulted, meaning it is concerned, but not only. The Torah is also looking at the situation of the cursor. Beautiful Rambam, that the Torah is prohibiting a person from arousing his soul to vengeance and accustoming it to anger. That's what the Bali Kabbalah learned, the Chazal learned from the fact that the pasuk says don't curse a deaf person. The pasuk only tells us a deaf person. How do we know to include everyone? Says in the other pasuk, among your people do not curse. So why does it tell you cheresh? Just as a cheresh is specific, is unique in that he is alive. Yatza hamesh eno b'chaim. That excludes someone who's dead, who's not alive. Uvin mechilta lo tkal cheresh davar kasu dibur kasu ba'amli lalim shavadam. Some say that that cheresh is referring to the Mechilta says cheresh is referring to the downtrodden among people. Mash amarnu loke b'tanai shekal b'shem im kilo la'atzmo loke. Okay, so in order to get malchus, you actually have to curse using one of God's names. But it's mashma, it's still also even if you don't use God's name. And so too, if you curse yourself, then you are then it's I'm going to read the whole thing because we're here already. If you curse yourself, then you get malchus. So if you curse your fellow with a name of God over b'lav echad, you're violating one lav. Who amro lo kal cheresh. V'makala is a dayan shiye over b'shnei lavin v'lo k'shtayim. If you curse any leader, you violate two lavin. V'makala nasi, and if you curse a nasi, lo shlosh, then you get three malchus. Lashon mechilta ani ekre nasi ba'amcha echad nasi v'echad dayan b'mashma matam lomer Elohim los kalel l'chayv al zeh b'fnei atma. Okay, God. Yesh b'davar. Okay, these are details. Okay, so just to summarize here, right, is when the Torah prohibits cursing, it is concerned about harming other people, but what it is also concerned about is you giving in to the arousal of your soul for vengeance and accustoming yourself to anger. The more you curse other people, the more you are priming yourself. What you're doing is you're treating. This gets into the thing we were saying about the relative value system. You're treating the suras nezek b'dimayon, the impression of harm in your imagination, as a reality, and you're substituting it for justice. You're saying, I don't care what mishpat dictates. I'm not going to beis din. I have my own private internal system of onesh that is mida k'neged mida, and I have to keep acting at this guy until I satisfy the shiur that this guy, of ownership this guy deserves, and it's totally imaginary. And sometimes you could discharge it just by cursing the guy under your breath in your car.
Yeah. So why is it just for Jews?
So that's a question in general on mishpatim, that there are lots of halachos that are bein adam l'chavero that are in the realm of justice that we only are mechayev you to do towards Jews, or we're only mechayev you me'ikar adin to do with Jews. So for example, like returning a lost object, or speaking lashon hara, or you arguably charging interest. And, you can argue whether it is why the Torah allows or commands you to charge interest. So on the surface, you'd say these things should be equal for all human beings, right?
This specifically,
right? Yeah,
is more about you than about others.
Well, it's not more about you, but it's also about you.
Okay, also about you, fine, but because it's about you,
right?
I can have those same internal feelings that could corrupt me,
right?
Having anger towards it.
Correct. So the answer to the question, according to my understanding, is philosophically and midos wise, it's definitely bad to do this with all people. But the reason why the Torah restricts its isurim and its mitzvos to only within Klal Yisrael, same thing v'hafta l'recha kamocha, right? Like you should v'hafta as kol adam, everyone's created b'tzelem Elokim, right? The answer is, according to my understanding, is it would be unrealistic. The Torah wants us to keep these mitzvos to establish these midos, and if the Torah demanded this of our relationships with all people wouldn't keep it and we wouldn't get the midos. And my example of this is when parents are trying to teach a kid to share, sharing is a good thing. Who do they do? How do they do it? They say, share with your siblings or share with your friends. They don't say, you have to share your toy with every kid on the playground, because they know that that's demanding too much. So what you do is you train them in the value of sharing and kindness with people who they feel close with. And then once the midos establish themselves, then they will naturally radiate outwards. So same thing here. Okay, yeah. So that was, I think, a good detour. Okay, but the reason why I went to the detour was because the Metzudas David is assuming that anger is accompanied by, so again, he learns kina is anger, and anger is accompanied by an impulse for revenge, like Aristotle said. And you're going to, and the Rambam is explaining the psychodynamics of it, which is that you have a nezek that is nikman b'dimayon, a harm that is impressed upon your imagination. And now whenever you see that guy, it's going to re-arouse your soul to take revenge. And this state of agitation is going to, eat away at your physical health. And it's also going to preoccupy your thoughts, because now let's say in the situation with a coworker, instead of interacting with a coworker and then thinking about how are we going to accomplish, this objective within our work, you're going to be thinking, well, how can I accomplish it in a way that like puts me ahead of him, or like makes him look like an idiot, or like makes him feel bad, or shows that he doesn't know what he's doing. It's going to all be like geared towards these other things, and it's going to like throw you off the path of what you should be focusing on.
So it's not just limited to like anger or revenge. It's also limited. It's also an example of jealousy and all those other things.
Yeah, I do think the Metzudas David though is going out of his way to say that kina means kas, and this is talking about revenge. But I think Ezra's idea that we developed yesterday is about like all forms of relative value system emotions. Yeah.
I have another example of like I have an example of the type of harm that can come from this.
Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically someone was at a very terrible job that they were able to get out of.
Yeah.
I don't know something. When I was leaving Amazon,
yeah.
I definitely had a feeling of like I wanted to leave in a way that would cause the team to like crash and burn because of mismanagement.
Right. Yeah.
That
yeah.
was like a feeling that I had.
Right.
Like I wanted to like.
That's a great example.
Like leave with like maybe like not giving notice, or like right in the middle of an important project in a way where everything was going to fall apart.
Right. Yeah.
And doing that would have hurt my relationships with all of the people I worked with.
Yeah.
In a way where like first off, it would show that I was being petty because I would
you were being petty. Yeah, you would have been petty. Yeah.
Yeah. But also it like it would have been clear that I was doing it to do this, and first off, it might not have even worked. And second, it would they would lose like because I left in on good terms. If I'm like, oh, I want to work with one of those people, like someone's working at a company I want to work at. And like I think they'd speak highly of me because I was a good coworker. I didn't throw it all away, to try to get revenge.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's a good example. I think it's a better example for the Mishnah in Avos that I quoted yesterday of that kina, taga, and kavod. Well, I guess this is kas, but whatever, is motinas anamin olam.
Well, say kina is revenge.
Right. So removing you from the world, like it is so removing you from the world of practicality. Like again, you in your imagination, you're getting back at your manager, but in reality, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're harming people who you don't want to harm, like your coworkers, right? So it's just like it's so removed from reality. It's insane. And it's literally insane. Yeah.
And like definitely, if I were to do that, my coworkers would be the one who would bear the brunt of it.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I want to make a point, and maybe this is just because I want to write about it tomorrow. In my what I'm thinking about this morning post, but I'll say it anyway. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the comedian John Mulaney. I think he's very funny. So he was recently on Netflix's David Letterman interview show, and Letterman takes Mulaney to his old high school, and they're kind of like he's kind of reminiscing, and Letterman asked him, he's saying like, now you are such a big star, and like you sold out the Hollywood Bowl, which I guess is a stadium with like 18,000 people or something like that. And he says, when you were on this stage in high school, did you ever think that you'd sell out the Hollywood Bowl? And John Mulaney says, no. Okay. So then they go on and they talk some more. And then they have there's multiple cameramen. So they have almost like, they do this, obviously they edited it this way on purpose. They show him talking to the cameraman from another camera, and he says, hold on, before we like leave the room, could we go back and can you ask me the question again about the Hollywood Bowl? I didn't answer truthfully. Okay, so then they film it again, and Letterman asks him, did you ever think that you would sell the Hollywood? And Mulaney says, this is going to sound very arrogant, but yes, I did think that. He says, when I was in high school, I said, I'm so funny, I deserve to like sell the Hollywood Bowl. So what I appreciated about that was the honesty that he gave an answer in a public interview, then realized that he wasn't being honest with himself, and he could have just realized that and moved on. But he said, no, I don't want I don't want to be dishonest with my emotions publicly on this thing. So the reason why I'm bringing this up now is I think one of the things that Mishlei forces you to do, if you're honest, is doing what Isaac just did, which is like, you really have to see, the fool in yourself in all of these psukim. And if you don't, you're really missing a huge part of Mishlei development. In other words, like seeing how you were prone to doing this, like you need that feeling of shame and embarrassment of like, oh, this was me or this could be me, and if you don't take that step, then like I think you're going to miss out on the Mishlei like forming you, So I think that's good that you mentioned that. Okay. We don't have a ton of time. I just want to show you an explanation which is not in the Metzudas David, that was radically different than what we've done. So I can no longer call him the Radak because I don't believe this is the Radak anymore. The Miyuchas the Radak. Chai b'sarim lev marpeh rov ta'anuge haguf marpim halev mi'avodas hakel. So he says, what does this mean? The life of flesh is meaning an excess of bodily enjoyments softens the heart from serving God. Okay, so he's learning marpe lev as bad. Okay, and chai b'sarim is the subject, and chai b'sarim is a life of taiva, essentially. Okay, so let's see if we can figure that out. I'm just gonna type this here. So this is the miyuchas le radak, is a life of flesh, i.e. excess indulgence in physical pleasures softens the heart from serving God. And I don't think he explains the second half according to that approach. Well, let's read the other ones anyway, just in case. Okay, so that's saying that the lev marpe is the life of man, because he won't be haughty and won't deviate from the right path. Because that's revenge also. Okay, so yeah, so the question is like, what is this idea here? Yeah,
I think at times the Torah really requires you to do things that are really uncomfortable, whether psychologically or physically. Let's say like fasting on Yom Kippur.
Yeah,
it's very physically uncomfortable, and I think a person who indulges in pleasure and like the way that they're living, it makes it so much harder,
right?
And, to be doing something that is uncomfortable,
right? It's a good example with the fasting, like I think Johnny was talking with someone who was Muslim about no, not Muslim. So I was talking to someone about like they were fasting. And they were like, Johnny was comparing like fasting experiences with them. And like, Johnny mentioned something about not drinking water. And they were like, you don't drink water on your fast? And it's like, yeah, for Jews, it's like, it's not easy, but like, we're so accustomed to like, to doing these things. Yeah. So in other words, depriving yourself of pleasure or exercising self-control is very difficult. So the more of a life of indulgence you live, the harder it's going to be to step up to what the Torah demands, even on a mitzvos level. Kolshkein on a like personal development level where you have to like voluntarily give up stuff. Yeah. I don't know what the second half is saying, but I think that's a good idea for the first half. And it is our end time. So what did we get today? So we got a further development of the Metzudas ציון and Metzudas David that really it is, I think yesterday we were blending it too much with Ezra's idea, but this is really the preoccupation with vengeance is going to eat away at you and cause daga, and that's going to affect you physically, but it's also going to, I think it fits in really well with what David was saying. It's really going to skew your decision making, like your Amazon example gave. And the Rambam really explains how that works, is that you are coming up with an alternative system of egocentric justice in your mind that demands satisfaction and that constantly arouses your soul to take that vengeance whenever you see the offender. And that's going to like keep you, it's going to unhinge you from reality, and make you make bad decisions and then affect you physically. All right, that was a good idea, and it's on the parashah too. Now you got a Torah for parashas kedoshim. Okay, have a good rest of the day. Thanks.